Hey everybody, Mr. M coming back at you with another mathematical video. Today we're going to be looking at the slope of lines and what exactly that is and how we can find it and all of that cool jazz. So, the slope of a line is basically how steep the line is. Alright, so if I have a line, this isn't very steep, so that wouldn't be a very big slope. This is going downhill, so it's going to be a negative slope. This is very, very steep, so it's going to be a high slope. Now, that's not really very mathematical, so let's go ahead and define that in mathematical terms. So the slope of a line is the change in y over the change in x. So basically, how far are we going to change vertical, or so going up or down, and how far are we going to change horizontal, so going left and right, or left and right. So if you take a look back at what we were doing the other day, we looked at the linear function. So whenever we identified m, that's slope. So our m is our slope. So to find the slope of the line, we've got two options. The first option is this. Our slope, which is our m, is the rise over the run. And so that's going to be predominantly used for if we have a graph that we can look at. Now if we just have points, we're going to use slope equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Alright, so our y sub 1 and x sub 1 would be our x and y points from our first point, and x2 and y2 are going to be the coordinates of the second point. So that's going to be if we're given a set of points and no graph. So I think we'll actually take a look at the rise over run first, and then we'll save the points for another day. So, the slope. If a line rises from left to right, uphill, it has a positive slope. If a line falls from left to right, downhill, it has a negative slope. Think about it like this. If I have a ball and it's going to move from left to right, if I have to push it up the hill, it's going to be positive. Alright? If I set the ball on one of the lines and it's just going to roll downhill, then that means it's going to have a negative slope. Alright? Now here's where things get a little tricky. If a line is vertical, if a straight line is vertical, it has an undefined slope. I want you to think about that. So think about our definition of slope. So our definition of slope is rise over run. Now if you notice, the vertical line doesn't run anywhere. It doesn't go left or right. So our run is going to be 0. So if we have a rise over 0, we can't have 0 in the denominator of a fraction, otherwise the world will explode. So that's why we call it an undefined slope. Alright, so a good way to remember this is the acronym VUX. So V stands for vertical. So if we have a vertical line, it is undefined. And actually our x is going to be the number. So what that means is our equation is going to be x equals whatever number that line is on for the x-axis. Alright. Now if a line is horizontal, that means its slope is equal to 0. So that means that on the top of our fraction, we're going to have a 0, right? And on the bottom is going to be a 1. Actually, it's gonna go on forever, right? That's the difference between a horizontal line and a vertical line. 0 in the denominator for the vertical line, and not a 0 in the denominator for the horizontal line. A good way to remember the horizontal line is the acronym HOI. So H for horizontal, 0, and then y equals the number. So y equals the number is going to be our equation for that line. So if we take a look at a graph, to find the slope of the line, we're going to use rise over run. So we're going to take a look at a certain point, and then we're going to see how far it takes us up and then over to get to another well-defined point. So I see 2 points here, and we can actually pick either point. It's not going to matter in the long run. And we're going to find the rise by counting either up or down. So for this point, we're going to count up 1, 2, 3. And for this point, we would count down 3. 1, 2, 3. Just like so. So we get 2 new points. Alright. So our rise is 3 if we chose this point, and our rise is negative 3 if we chose this point. You're going to find that it's not actually going to matter what you choose. You should get the same slope. Now let's find our run. So we're going to choose the same 2 points. And if you'll notice, our run is going to be 2 if we selected this point, and -2 if we selected this point. So we're trying to get back to that well-defined point. All right. So if you started from the top point, your run will be to the left, and that means negative. And if you start at the bottom point, your run's going to be right. So that's going to be a +2. So if we put those numbers together, if we start at the top point, we should get -3 over -2. If we start at the bottom number, we should get 3 over 2. Now, if you'll notice, this is a negative over a negative. Those negatives are going to cancel. So in the end, we should get the same slope of 3 over 2, which is super nifty. Now that is only going to work with a straight line. If your line has crazy curves in it, that's not really going to work anymore. But we won't look at that until a lot later. Alright, so go ahead and find the slope. This is going to be your first assessment question. I'll give you a few minutes to take a look at this, and then I'll give you a hint about halfway through, and let's see what you can come up with. Keep in mind we're looking for rise over run. So look for that well-defined point. Find another well-defined point and see how far to the right or left, and then how far up or down that you need to do to get to that next well-defined point. As a little hint, I'll go ahead and add that for you guys. And then here's our answer. So the slope is -2 over 3. So we go down 2, so down 2, that's the -2 part, and over 3. So that's our rise. We rise down 2 and over 3. That's our run. All right, let's take a look at another one. Before we get started with this one, I want you to think to yourself, what slope is this going to have? Is it going to be positive or negative? Am I going to have to push this ball up the line, or is it just going to roll on its own due to gravity? Think about that for a second. Then whenever you're ready, go ahead and try and see if you can figure out what the slope is. Again, we're looking for rise and run. I see a well-defined point here, and here, and here. A lot of well-defined points to choose from. I'll give you a little bit of a hint. And it looks like we're ready for the answer. So our slope is going to be -7 over 2. Now the cool thing that happens, if you would have chosen a point down here and the point up here, you would have fallen -14, and then your run would have been 4, and that still reduces to -7/2. So it doesn't matter what points that you pick as long as they're well-defined points, because your fraction is going to simplify regardless. All right, let's take a look at one more. And this one's going to be a little bit easy one, but I want to see if you can remember that acronym that we looked at. I'll give you a hint. Our acronym was VUX, VUX. And our slope is undefined. So if we have a vertical line, we have an undefined slope because we have that 0 in the denominator, remember. And our equation for this is going to be x equals whatever number we're on. So in this case, it's -3. So our equation for this line is x equals -3. Right? If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. Hope everybody has a great day.